Time to install our second package, and this one is fun. Let's commit our changes first. It'll make it easier to check out any changes that the new package's recipe makes. Add everything. That looks fine, so commit. Beautiful. Now run composer require debug. So yes, this is another Flex alias. And apparently it's an alias for Symfony/debug pack. And we know that a pack is a collection of packages. So instead of adding this one line to our composer.json file, if we check, it looks like it added one new package up under the require section. This is a logging library. And all the way at the bottom, it added a new require-dev section with 3 other libraries. The difference between require and require-dev isn't too important. All of these packages were downloaded into our app. But as a best practice, if you install a library that's only meant for local development, you should put it into require-dev. The pack did that for us. Thanks, pack. Back at the terminal, this also installed 3 recipes. Ooh. Let's see what those did. I'll clear the screen and run git status. So this is familiar. It modified config/bundles.php to activate 3 new bundles. Again, bundles are Symfony plugins, which add more features to our app. It also added several configuration files to the config/packages directory. We'll talk more about these files in the next tutorial, but on a high level, they control the behavior of those bundles. So what did these new bundles give us? To find out, head over to your browser and refresh the homepage. Holy cats, Batman! It's the Web Debug Toolbar. This is debugging madness, a toolbar full of good info. On the left, you can see the controller that was called, along with the HTTP status code. There's also the amount of time the page took, the memory it used, and also how many templates were rendered through Twig. This is the cute Twig icon. On the right side, we have details about the Symfony local web server that's running and PHP info. But you haven't seen the best part. Click any of these icons to jump into the profiler. This is the Web Debug Toolbar gone crazy. It's full of data about that request, like the request and response, all of the log messages that happened during that request, information about the routes and the route that was matched. Twig shows you which templates were rendered and how many times they were rendered. And there's configuration information down here. Phew! But my most favorite section is performance. This shows a timeline of everything that happened during the request. This is great for 2 reasons. The first is pretty obvious. You can use this to find out which parts of your page are slow. So, for example, our controller took 20.4 milliseconds. And within the controller's execution, the homepage template rendered in 3.9 milliseconds, and base.html.twig rendered in 2.8 milliseconds. The second reason this is really cool is that it uncovers all the hidden layers of Symfony. Set this threshold down to 0. Previously, this only displayed things that took more than 1 millisecond. Now it's showing everything. You don't need to worry about the vast majority of the stuff. But it's super cool to see the layers of Symfony, the things that happen before and after your controller is executed. We have a deep dive tutorial for Symfony if you want to learn more about this stuff. The Web Debug Toolbar and Profiler will also grow with our app. In a future tutorial, when we install a library to talk to the database, we will suddenly have a new section that lists all of the database queries that a page made and how long each took. Okay, so the debug pack installed the Web Debug Toolbar. It also installed a logging library that we'll use later. And it installed a package that gives us two fantastic debug functions. Head over to Vinyl Controller. Pretend that we're doing some developing, and we need to see what this tracks variable looks like. It's pretty obvious in this case, but sometimes you'll want to see what's inside a complex object. To do that, say dd tracks, where dd stands for dump and die. So if we refresh, yep, that dumps the variable and kills the page. And this is a lot more powerful and prettier than using var_dump. We can expand sections and see deep data really easily. Instead of dd, you can also use dump to dump and live. But this might not show up where you expect it to. Instead of printing in the middle of the page, it shows up down in the Web Debug toolbar under the target icon. If that's a bit too small, click to see a bigger version in the profiler. You can also use this dump in Twig. Remove the dump from the controller, and then in the template, right before the UL, dump tracks. And this looks exactly the same, except that when you dump in Twig, it does dump right into the middle of the page. And even more useful, in Twig only, you can use dump with no arguments. This will dump all variables that we have access to. So here's the title variable, tracks, and surprise, there's a third variable called app. This is a global variable that we have in all templates, and it gives us access to things like the session and user data. And we just discovered it by being curious. So now that we've got these awesome debugging tools, let's turn to our next job, which is to make this site less ugly. Time to add CSS and a proper layout to bring our site to life.